Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video I'm going to explain and demonstrate how to create an ASP.NET Core project using database first approach. In my previous tutorial I showed you how to create an ASP.NET Core project using the code first approach. That is, we created an employee class first, and from that class we created a database and controllers and views. So let's have a look how to create a database first approach. So for that, if you are following with me, open your Visual Studio, please. I have Visual Studio 2022. So that's what I open, and it's clicking on creating a new project. So I'll type again MVC, and I will choose my language as C#, and I want my web application to be compatible on these platforms. That's what .NET Core for. And let's give it a name. Let's call it HRDBS database system, let's say, or maybe just whatever you want to give it. And then specify a location, and after specifying the location, click Next. Here, the .NET 8.0 or 9, they're OK. And I want you to select this one, which you're going to use in another video, how to create authentication and how to make certain views restricted for registered users only. So I will come back to this. For now, just choose this individual accounts for security. It's a good option. Then after this, create a project with, that's what we created. And we have this Solution Explorer with program.cs with some built-in code already here that we can execute. And I already have Entity Framework that I was about to install some. Okay, then this is our ASP app settings JSON, which has our connection string. We will come back to this again as well. It's automatically created this database and give it this name as well. And by default, we have a home controller as always with these two methods for index and privacy, which are these two views in the home folder, which I explained in my previous video. And when we come to models, there is no class as such that we need for our data, as you can see here. So let's do first thing first. I want to create a database here in this project. But before I create it, let's run it. What do we get from this? From all this default code like home controller and views. As in our previous project, we have these two views, home, which has just a basic home H1 and small paragraphs. And then we got privacy here, which is this one. And as you can see in the path, they're all pointing to the home controller. It looks like everything as we expect, a basic application with 2 pages only. So let's create our database first. The plan for the database is that I want to create, let me show you what I want to create. Let's go to these things we already done. This is what I want to create now. This is the default location of my database. Ignore that for now. You might have a different location. But this is what I want to create now in employee table with employee ID, int as a data type, identity for auto generation, and primary key. And then we got name, varchar, not null. We got DOB, address, postcode, phone, email, start date, and niNumber of our employees. So that's what I want to create in my projects. So let's go back to our Visual Studio. And there's an option we need to go to database option to create database. So for that, if we can go to Views, SQL Server Object Explorer, and it's going to create me that project HRDBS. Okay, so we have some system databases as well here. Right, when I click on this localdb1, which is my SQL instance, and when I click on my databases, empDBS, so what is inside this? How come it's created already for me? Oh, sorry, it is actually from our previous project that we previously created. Yeah, this is the employee table that we created in our core first approach. So now we need to create another database. You see there are different instances here. One is my localdb one, which I installed SQL Server myself, and I set up and I created that instance. And there's another one here, which is mssqllocalDB, which comes with my Visual Studio when I installed. So you can go for any one of them, but I would prefer to go for this one for now. I'd right click here and it say create another database, one option. Or the second option is that probably I don't even need to create another database, because if I go back to my app settings, this is the database automatically created for me, which is ASP.NET HRDBS. Is this the one? Where is that one? Right. The only thing I want you to have a look at is, because I have two localdb instances, the localdb1 and this one, mssqllocalDB. You see mssqllocalDB. So in this in this instance, I'll just right click and I create a new database. And I'm going to call this, let's say, HR database. Just give it a name. Oh, there's another important thing here. You see this? You can set a location path here as well. For example, in my case, I'll just go to ASP.NET Core, and I'll go to this one, and then I want to store my. So I'm going to, you can choose any folder, model, or you can choose data, but let me choose this data option here. And within data, I want that database to be created, HR database. So click OK. Right, this created this database for me. So when I go there, there's no database at the moment. So to create a database within this database that I created, you can have a lot of databases here. So ignore these databases depending on how many projects you create. So on this HR database, I want to create a new table. So I'm going to right click here, and I have few options. I can just say add new table, right? Another option I have is right click on that database and I say new query. This is the situation when you want to execute your own query, then creating it using GUI. So I'm just going to copy paste my code that I already created from my slide. So this is the table that I want to create in my HR database. Employee ID, name, DOB, address, postcode, and all this. So once I select all this code, you can execute this button. You can click on this button to execute the code. It says command completed successfully. You see, it's created a database table for me. You see, I don't have to add any data here. I'm going to add it once I create and complete my project. But for now, I have a table, right? So the table is created for me in my database, which is called HR database. So the first step is done in the database first approach. The database is created, which is called HR database. Within database, we created this table, which is called employee. And if you go on the right side in the Solution Explorer and click on data, there is a file here. It's very important that your database file, which is MDF, is in the same project. It should not go to another C drive in another drive. It should be in the same drive where the other project files are. Otherwise, it will create problems when it comes to deployment. So let's go to the next step now. Another thing you need to ensure is that these three packages are installed for this project. EntityFrameworkCore, SQL Server, Tools, and Design. So let's have a look and make sure they are installed. So for that, I go to Tools, Nuget Package Manager. Let's say click on Browse, and the first one, probably they may be already installed in my case, because I already created similar project. So if I search SQL Server and click on it, it is already installed here. So if it is not, in that case, you can just click and install it. But it's already there, so I don't need to uninstall or something. So it's already here for you guys. If it is not there, just install it. Another thing I'm going to search is Tools, and if you click on this, so I just click on. So Tool is also installed. Install now. So what is that? Okay, so this is 4.3. Okay, let's say install this one, the latest one. Apply. I accept. The probably looks like Tool was not installed. It is installed now, 4.350. These are required when we're creating a database. Another thing I require is called Design. This is EntityFrameworkCore.Design. So if I click on this, okay, and this is the latest one. This is what I have, 8.0.16. If you want the latest one, you can install it. Otherwise, this is working for me. So make sure that these three Entity Framework Core are installed. So that was the second step. Let's move on to the third step. So let's close this option now. We can close this one as well. I don't need to store that code. Okay, now I need to create, when the database is created, the next step is to create a C# class of this table, which we just created, these attributes. For that, I need to create a C# class. So the next step is to create a C# class. To create a C# class of this entity in our model folder, we have to execute this command in our package manager console. That is Scaffold-DbContext server equal to localdb mssqllocalDB. That's our database instance, and we are referring to a local database. And then what is our database name we're going to provide here? So what is our database name here in this case? That's called HRDatabase. So make sure that you change this. I'm going to provide you this code in the chat as well. So that is HRDatabase. The rest you can leave it as it is. These are that trusted connections equal to true, and all this is actually copied from our connection string. So if you just copy that, and let's move on to PMC, Package Manager Console. So you go to there, and then go up and type it here. Oh no, it's a lot to type, just copy paste it. I'll provide you this code. And what is happening now, let's have a look. It says build successful. Right, let's see what happened. After executing this script, which is a scaffolding command DB-context, it does a few things. You see, this is referring to a local DB. This is our local DB instance here, which is this one, mssqllocalDB. So in your case, if your instance name is different, please provide the name appropriately and make sure this is the right database name. You see, I can have I have 3-4 databases, so I must provide the right attributes. Otherwise, it might be looking for a database for a table in another database, because right now I have 2 databases here and some databases in other instance. So you have to provide the right information, the right instance, and the right database name. Now let's go to our model now. There are 2 files actually created. One of them is employee, and if you look at it and compare it with your attributes, it's exactly the replica of your database attributes, like employee ID, you see that name, DOB, address, postcode, with the corresponding data type specified here. We're going to change these, data annotation anyway later. But at the moment, as you can see, it's created all these attributes for us. And another important file here is created. It's called EmpContext, which we're going to use to access this database. And if you look at this file, it has a lot of information about this table, like the primary key specified here as the employee ID, and it says entity.add to table employee, and these are all the attributes that we just saw created there. So these are the two files created for us now by executing this command here that I'm going to share with you in the chat. All these steps I will share it once I upload the video. Right, let's go on to the next step now. Now the next step here is that when I go to this file, appsetting.json, my connection string, which is actually connecting my project to a database, is actually referring to another database. This database also I will need later, but not at the moment. So I need to comment this out, and I need to provide the exact correct data, which can refer to my database, the one I'm connecting now. So for that, like similar, I created another connection string here, which is like this. Let me copy paste it here, which is a bit different name, as you can see here. Sorry. So as you can see here, I provided my own connection string name, which are HRDB. Server equal to, as you can see here, localdb, which is fine. And the instance is the same mslocaldb, which is referring to this instance. And the database now, in my case, is HRDatabase, which is here. The rest are those attributes, as you can see above. This is just a bit simple name for the database, and that's my database instance. What is this connection string actually? It's establishing a connection between your database and the rest of the application. Right, let's see. So that's the connection string is done. Let's go to the program.cs, which is an important file for us. And we need to make sure that this file, which has a lot of important code which run our project, it has our class Employee.cs is registered. To register this Employee.cs class with our program.cs, as you can see, they are in two completely different folders. One is in a model folder, one is here, so they don't talk to each other. To register that employee here, you can write here using the project name, which is HRDBs.models. So in this way, we can now register this employee.cs here in the program.cs. So it is accessible. Right now it shows gray because we are not referring to this employee.cs or emp.context at the moment. But once we refer to these two files in our code, it will show us active like this one. So this is an important file called program.cs, which is actually referring to some database.data folder, which is here, which has some of our migration code. We'll come back to this, and our database and stuff. It is also referring to that identity that we installed, an Entity Framework Core. Now, as you can see, we're trying to communicate with this folder, which is HRDatabase, our project name, as you can see here on the top in the Solution Explorer. And within that, we are trying to talk to the models folder, which is here. Actually, within this, we need these two files, isn't it? One is the employee, which has actually our data defined. This is created based on our database table. Let's close it for now. And another important file here is EmpContext, which has all the information about the table that is created for us. And this EmpContext has a name, which is EmpContext class, as you can see. They're called partial classes because these classes have some instances, some contents in another class. They're called partial classes. Partial itself, we have quite a few partial classes here that I'm going to explain later. And they're actually inheriting from the DB context class. Now remember this name that we need here, empContext. We're going to refer to this in a minute. And if you go back to this, remember one thing, that the default connection that is created for us, whereas the connection string, we actually commented out because I don't need this database connection string. Instead, I created my own connection string with referring to a local DB, my instance database name, and I give it a name HRDB. Yeah, so that's my connection string name. And what is my empContext name, which let me talk to my database? That's called empContext. So I need these two now within this to register my class here in the program.cs. So for that, if I scroll down here to this code, it has some code here like var builder equal to view application dot create builder argument. So there's just quite a lot of code here. But the most important thing for us here is that this code is actually referring to my default connection string. But what is my connection string here now in the app setting.json file? The connection string name, I made it simple, which is HRDB. So I go back to my program.cs, and this default connection, which I'm not referring to anymore, I'm going to replace it with HRDB. This is an error message which throws exception handling if it is not found. So I'm going to give it here the same name. So if it can't find during operation, it can throw that connection string HRDB not found. So I updated my connection string here in line number 9. And if you scroll down further to this, it says builder.services add DbContext, application DbContext. Yeah. But if you go here, I have my own DbContext class now. It's called empContext. So you don't have to create all this code. You just need to understand what classes you changed. Like I changed my connection string name from default to HRDB, so I updated the code. Another thing I want here is that my application DbContext is not that one. Instead, I give it a name empContext based on my project. So when I change these, connection strings are updated, the name, and when I updated it with the correct DbContext, which is called empContext, now look, that line of code using HRDB, which is my project name, that model is active now. So my class, my DbContext, that is empContext actually is now active. So they can talk to my empContext class and employee class. Right, so that is done. So my program.cs is done, empContext done, all done, and the connection string is done. So we have database. From the database, we have a class, which is employee class. So what do we need now? We need controllers and views. So we can interact with database through employee class. So I'm going to controllers, right click, add, and add controller. Right, within this, I'm going to choose the third option, that an MVC controller with actions and razor views to create, read, update, delete. So I don't want to do a lot of code here. We created our database, we created from database our class. Now from the class, we're trying to create our controllers and views. So let's click on add. Okay, so what is our model class now? We just created an employee class from our database. DbContext. Now, what is our DbContext name? You see, we replaced this with the empContext. So that's all we need to do. And so generate views, yes. Reference script, that's fine. Use a layout page, yeah, that's the same thing. So just leave it as they are. Okay, the controller name, if you want to give it a different name, but make sure this is employees controller, employee controller, or EMP controller. So it's just a tradition that every controller has this second name as controller, like home controller. So leave it as it is, employees controller, and then click on add. It may take a while. Oh, beautiful. So we have the employee controller created now, which is actually inheriting from the controller class. And look at this. That's the employee context class here in the model, which is creating an object. As you can see, encapsulation in practice here. And then we have all these action results are created here for detail, which is this one is actually the home page, with sending all our employees as a list to the view. But this is for something we previously explained. So this is all the code created for us to see the detail of a specific employee. That's a bit of if-else statement, ensuring that we have something that is displaying. Right, this is create, which is just another view, which will load a form to add another employee. So if I scroll down, it has all the same methods as in our previous project. Yeah, all the create, read, update, delete. You see, this is that bind property we discussed previously, which ensures only the relevant attributes data is passed to this function to avoid those cross-site referencing attacks. A lot of beautiful code. Already some annotations are added here for security. And then, as you can see here, the delete folder here, which you pass an ID. From that ID, which is the primary key of the employee, we are actually deleting a specific row or record, avoiding deleting all the employees' records. So these are all the CRUD feature functions are created in this employee controller. And if you go down to the views folder, inside the view, another folder is created next to the home, which is called employees. And within that, as you can see here, we have a view for index, which shows all our employees in the form of a table. You're not going to see anything now. These are for the heading. And as you can see, all the data from the model is actually displayed here using these columns. And these are those edit details and delete folder. And we have these bootstrap classes embedded here. And then we got all these detail create. For create, we have a form here with beautiful bootstrap classes, which make it looks beautiful. Right, we're going to run this now, but before that, I want to double check everything is okay. So we have a database created. From the database, we created the class. From the class, we created controller and views. It looks like MVC kind of ready. I'm still expecting a small problem here, but let's see. Let's run this project now. Right, as expected, there is a bit of problem. It says aggregation section, some sites are not being extracted from this. Okay, let's have a look at this. Right, another thing that I found here, that this is still referring to application.DB.context, which in my case is actually EmpContext. So if you can just remove this EmpContext. Yeah. Now let's run this application. So we have the correct connection string here. We have the correct what is called DB.context class, EmpContext, which is actually referring to this file here, which is allowing us to talk to the database. As you can see here, this is the EmpContext with all the attributes defined here. So looks like program.cs looks good now. It has our connection strings and our DB.context references registered here. So let's run this code now. Let's see what do we get. Okay, so this is our default home page, privacy page, that by default created here, which is referring to the home controller. Let's remove the home controller and type employees now. So if I type employees, beautiful. So it created that view, home view for us. If you call it /index, but is not ideal to type the database. I don't like it. We're going to make it as a calendar later, maybe in another video when we talk about data annotation, which I covered in my previous video as well. So let's say for High Street. London, and say N1. Yeah, just add anything here. Or maybe let's say that's the phone number, and let's say jason@gmail.com, and let's say his start date is 2nd March, and put some niNumber. Just put some random data here and click create. So you see a row is created here. And if you want to edit it, for example, his address is not 4 High Street, it's 25 High Street. And let's see. You see, it's updated. So the create is working, the edit is working, detail in case if you want to see delete it, or if you want to, just go back to the list, and if you click on delete, it shows you before you delete it. So give you another chance, so you don't delete it by mistake. Okay, so that is added. Let's close this for now. Another important thing, just to repeat ourselves, we've done previously as well, that employee was not coming up on our menu. So we have to manually type the employee. So let's go to the shared folder, go to the layout, and as you can see here, this is the menu defined here. So when we load our application, we only see 2 items in the menus, which is the home and the privacy. So the home is index and privacy is here. So just add another 1 item here. Just copy paste. You don't have to type the whole code again and again. So say a few minutes. So I add another list item in the menu, which is referring to the home controller, which we don't want because we have another controller now, employees. So instead of home, I will make it as employees. And ASP action, I want to load the home page. So for that, I have the home page in the employee is called index here. You see, you don't have to type the extension CS/HTML. And what should be the text appearing? You can just call it employees. Yeah. So that will show me a new item in my main menu. So let's execute the code again. Okay, so now we have 3 items here. I can click on employees, and I can click create, and let's say I add another one, Sarah, and say, and then let's say this one. Yes, add something here, and this is some phone number, mobile number. Let's say get. And let's say there's some niNumber. So these are some random email addresses and phone numbers. Okay, so we have these employees now added. So our create works, edit works, and if you want to try delete, just go to delete. You see Sarah detail here, and if you want to delete it, click delete, and it's gone. So what we have done so far, home works, we got privacy, employees, all the correct features work. And this is a database first approach. Yeah? So that's how we create database first. From the database, we created employee class, which is defining the data. And then we got this EmpContext, which is another C# class, enabling us to talk to the database. And from this employee class, then we created this controller, which has all the correct methods. And from this controller, we have these views created, which all works. And after that, we uploaded our menu by adding a reference to our employee class. So that's a database first approach. Thank you for watching.